Good morning. I'm going to give you three things for the price of one over the next 15 minutes or so. I'm going to talk about the dairy industry, just in terms of long-term supply and demand, what's happening right now in some of the sustainability focus areas. I'll of course talk about First Milk, who we are and what we're doing on sustainability. And thirdly, I don't know about you, when I come to some of these conferences I feel quite inadequate, because there's a lot of people talking about what they're doing and everybody's a superstar and everything's absolutely fantastic, but I'm going to talk about some of the mistakes that we have made, that I have made, and what I've learned from that. So I'll finish off on that. Firstly, let me just talk you through this slide. This is a slide which is the predictions on supply and demand for the dairy industry up to 2020. And actually the first thing I noticed with this slide is it's a different view of the world. It was obviously done by somebody in New Zealand because they planted themselves right at the centre of the map, which is quite different. But I think the main things to pull out of it is, you look at it from a Europe perspective and from a US perspective, things are kind of in balance in terms of supply and demand. But there's huge opportunities in Africa, the Middle East, Asia, in particular India and China. And I think that's borne out in a lot of these markets, because really as soon as they get some disposable income, the first thing they'll do is they'll buy dairy. And a lot of that with somewhere like China, where one-child families will be fairly common. Clearly you want to look after that kid as much as possible. You want to make them stronger, faster, smarter, and some of the advertising in terms of dairy and that would bear that out, as well as some of the advertising from governments in Singapore, Malaysia and China just to promote dairy. So you would think with all this positivity, looking out for the dairy industry, British dairy farmers would be quite happy. This is a protest outside a dairy processor site just a couple of weeks ago. I think it's a Dairycrest site. And I guess this moves from a medium-term situation where everything looks fantastic to a real short-term issue. As everybody see it, I take it everybody's seen these the protests, the dairy farmer protests over the last couple of weeks, and it's been in most of the mainstream media. Because it's not just Dairycrest they've hit. It's a Müller site a couple of weeks ago, Müller yogurt site. There's also retailers, Morrison site there, some tractors outside there, and also finally just an Iceland site. And the good thing about social media is that campaign groups like Farmers for Action, which are protesting this, put all this stuff on Twitter and give us some of these images. So with all that demand out there and a growing global population, screaming for more dairy nutrition, why have we got protests right now? I think it's important just to set that context. And slightly complicated slide, but let me just talk you through it. And I think this gives us part of the answers. If you could look at just the left-hand side of that chart at the bottom, it starts at the year 2000, goes right along to this month, October 2014. If you look at the first half of that, so it's just the period up to 2007, in terms of what was happening in the blue line, which is milk prices to farmers, and the green shade area, which is global commodity prices. Global commodities would be things like skim milk powder, whole milk powder, butter, mild cheddar. There wasn't very much volatility. It was up and down by about 20%. So pretty easy to handle for processors and for farmers. What we've seen since 2007 is three spikes, three big movements in terms of volatility from peak to trough. And what we're seeing is that the spikes are getting bigger and the troughs are getting lower. And the latest one we're in right now is the decline from the peak to the trough, and I'm not sure we've quite hit the bottom yet. It's 32%. Now let me put that in context. In 1929, Wall Street crash, people were throwing themselves out of windows, and the drop was not 30%, so it was less than that. In terms of the global financial crisis, shares in the bank were not down as much as 30%. So if you're thinking about that, if these changes are flowing through to farmers' incomes, think about going home tonight and telling your family, your partner, your income's gone down by 30%, and how you have to manage that. So really being a farmer and managing something like that, where you're having to, your milk price is dropping by that amount over a 6-month period, is pretty challenging. In terms of the sustainability of the dairy sector, there's a number of things that are happening. There's growing global demand for dairy nutrition. It's growing about 2.5 to 3% per year on an annual basis. As I've just talked through, there's clearly more volatile prices. There's growing impact of climate change around the world, so that will be capping production in some places. There is a much more greater consumer priority in terms of health and well-being. It's a $500 billion marketplace in terms of health and well-being, and dairy is putting itself just front and centre of that. And I think for all of us, which is positive, there's a growing focus on sustainability. I'm sure whoever you speak to right now, whether their intentions are to greenwash or whether they really get sustainability, everybody's talking about sustainability, and I'm amazed at the amount of people at this conference and all the stands there. Let me just talk a bit about First Milk, about who we are and what we do in sustainability. And the first slide I'm going to show you, you're probably going to see this and think, well, it's a bit twee that. You've got a farming family there, you've got some rolling hills, you've got some healthy looking cows. And the reason I put it up there is First Milk is a dairy farmer cooperative. We're owned by 1,400 farmers throughout the UK. And they're our shareholders. They put their trust in us in terms of selling, marketing their milk and getting them a return. In my career, I've only worked for 2 companies. I worked for First Milk for 8 years, and before that I was with a global drinks company, Diageo, for 12 years. And it was very different at Diageo. First, the staff shop was a lot better at Diageo with Guinness and Smirnoff and Bell's and Gordon's and Johnny Walker, so that was a lot better. But I didn't really think about shareholders much. The only time I thought about shareholders was around about AGM time, or there was a bit of a revolt in terms of the chief executive pay, so I didn't really think about shareholders. But part of my job in First Milk, I've got 3 things that I do. I kind of lead in communication, I lead in sustainability, but I also look after the farmer-facing team. So I have a number of meetings with farmers, so when you drop the price, you certainly hear about it. So as I say, we're owned by 1,400 farmers. We handle about 1.4 billion litres of milk. To put that in context, that's about 10% of the UK's milk supply. And we have 7 manufacturing sites throughout the country. So we have 4 creameries making cheddar. We have 1 soft cheese facility up in Scotland. We have a sports nutrition site in Manchester, and we have 1 skim milk powder site in Wiltshire. In terms of, we work with a number of companies, and some of them are business to business and business sector. But this just reflects what our brands are. And I was starting on the left-hand side. We do hard cheddar, and some of you may well have seen the Lake District cheddar brand in your cheese aisles. We've also, just in the last 18 months, we've launched a product called Quark. So those of you who are in mainland Europe, this will be very familiar to you. It's a market that's worth about £500 million in Germany. In the UK, when we went into it, it was worth about 3 million. We've trebled the size of that category. It's a soft cheese, and the original flavours we launched are lemon, natural, and vanilla. So you can use it in cooking or baking. And we've just launched, just over the last couple of months, some cook-in sauces of Quark. So again, people who be aware of Weight Watchers or that will be very aware of this, or people who are involved in bodybuilding. In the middle, we've got Frumu, which is a milk and fruit drink, which we'll get into. Another thing we do is we have a sports nutrition business we bought a couple of years ago, and we work pretty closely with Team Sky, the cycling team. We've worked the business we bought, the CNP business we bought 2 years ago, has worked with Team Sky since 2010 when it was established. And in May we launched some smoothies and some porridges in the retailers. You can buy that in Tesco now and a number of other retailers. And we've also launched some Quark breakfast pots as well, just under the Team Sky range, and that's also in Tesco. And on the very right hand side, you've got more functional products, which are for people who are regular gym users, cyclists, endurance sports or power sports like weightlifting or boxing. We have products for that, and that's the core of the company. The thing at the top is really important. It's good and good for you. If we're launching any product, whether that be something which is very mainstream like cheese or Quark, or some of the more functional products, it's got to be good and good for you. So the ingredients within it is either going to be good or it's going to be a functional benefit of that. there, or we don't launch anything in terms of our innovation pipeline. As a farmer co-op, and with the challenges right now, clearly there's a number of farm services we do. So we offer a buying group for farmers where they can buy all the farm inputs, feed, fertilizer, fuel. They can buy mobile phones, they can buy computers, they can buy cars at a cheaper rate. We offer a farm sustainability program where we help them look after their animals and what they can do to maximise the welfare down there and keep the cows healthy, and also just maximise the margins, getting more milk from grass rather than buying in purchased feed. And finally, we have First Milk Energy, which looks at solar panels, wind turbines, etc. And we're also looking at farm scale AD plants. In terms of our sustainability program, to be honest, we bounced around quite a lot. We started this in maybe 2006-07. We bounced around quite a lot in terms of the days of CSR, what were we going to focus on. And it's only really in the last 2 years or so we've really got something that really works for us, because when you start looking at sustainability, you look at what Unilever are doing, or Nestle are doing, or M&S are doing, but it's best just to come back and do something that works for your supply chain, something you can have influence in. So from the top, we have, all of these are important, but really first among equals is food for the future. We have to deliver food that people actually want to consume. If we haven't got that, we haven't got a business. So that has to be really front and centre. And then within that, we have something called Wheels, Deals and Yields, which is rewarding farmers for sustainable practices. So, for instance, when we have milk for a cheese site, what we really want is the solids in the milk. We want the protein and the butter fat. We don't really want all the volume in the milk, so we incentivise farmers on that. We do a number of milk swaps up and down the country with other companies to reduce our haulage. The tyres in our vehicles are all recycled, so we work with our hauliers on that. Reduce, renew, recycle. I guess in some ways that's a base level now. We look after our own sites, we invest in renewable energy, and a couple of examples of that just coming up. In terms of feed for the future, we work there with our farmers to make sure they were minimising the amount of bought-in feed, which allows our business to be more sustainable and maximise the amount of milk they're getting from grass. And the bottom one is cow and calf. It's purely about just animal welfare. I just want to give you 3 examples of what we do on sustainability. First one is we've got a partnership with Nestle, and again, we don't always have a partnership with Nestle. We've worked with them for about 13, 14 years, supplying milk into their chocolate crumb factory in Girvan in Ayrshire, and also their cappuccino factory in Dalston in Cumbria. 2009, 2010, we set up a dedicated farmer group because Nestle, unlike a lot of their competitors, are very focused on transparency of the supply chain, been working with their suppliers and partners, and letting the people that consume their products have a real clear view in terms of the whole supply chain and what goes into this. So even though our farmers only supply milk that goes to chocolate crumb, they want to have that within the pack, and they want to be transparent. So we've got a group of farmers now, around about 60 farmers supplying to site in Girvan and Ayrshire. We are recruiting farmers at the minute to supply into the site at Dalston in Cumbria. So we supply about 10% of our total milk into Nestle there. They receive a slightly higher price than the marketplace for that. And there's a number of sustainability practices that they have to do as part of the contract. They have to set aside some land for biodiversity, which is in line with Nestle's strategy. They have to do carbon footprinting, and they have to get involved in professional development workshops. So there's a certain standard of business practice there. And also they have to get involved in the milk from forage to make their farms more sustainable. Another example of what we do is what we've done in West Wales. We have a site in West Wales, in Pembrokeshire in West Wales. We have 300 farmers supplying into that in 30-mile radius. The challenge for us on that site, the farmers wanted to produce more milk. We wanted to produce more cheese to make it more efficient. But the challenge was the effluent plant. We were capped in terms of how much milk we could put through there and how much cheese we could therefore produce because of the effluent plant. And the company that held the permit were Welsh Water. And when we wanted to put a new effluent plant in there and increase the milk going through it, Welsh Water didn't want to give up the permit. So we had to find a solution with the Environment and Natural Resources Wales, which is the company that used to be the Environment Agency in Wales, to work a solution on there. So what we did is we looked at, okay, we've got farmers, some of them bordering this river, the Clydau River in, near our site. Can we work with our farmers to, so that if they look at what they do in terms of the nutrients they put into their soil, in terms of the nitrates, in terms of the phosphates there, if they do that and they commit to that, will you give us a permit for our site at Haverfordwest? So that has been, you know, quite a successful partnership. Without that creative thinking, we just wouldn't be able to produce more cheese at that site. So I think some of these agencies, when you get them on the right day and you get the right thinking, then it works. I think the final example I just want to show is what we're doing in Cumbria, our site in Cumbria, Lake District Creamery, which is quite near Carlisle, about 20 miles from Carlisle. Again, it's the same objectives as West Wales. We want a sustainable supply chain that secures local jobs and farm incomes. And we want to control energy costs as much as possible because it looks like they're only going to go one way. We want to make savings. So if you don't know about the cheese process, think back to your Little Miss Muffet rhyme. So you've got your curds, they go into the cheese making process, and you've got your whey. Currently, we also work with a joint venture partner, which is a New Zealand cooperative called Fonterra, to concentrate the whey, and that goes into sports drinks, energy drinks, sports nutrition. But we also have a by-stream of that, which is whey permeate, where we have a whole lot of whey permeate, 128,000 tonnes, which currently we are drying and taking it off-site. We've come up with a solution where instead of drying that, we're putting that into an AD plant to make biogas. We'll keep a tiny amount just for electricity to make it that self-sufficient. We'll clean up the biogas and we'll put it into the network, the Northern Gas network, and then we can call that off to put into our sites. Now from that, we're not only saving about 3,000 vehicle movements, we're not only reducing our power consumption by 25%, we've got green gas against fossil fuels, but there's about 7,000 tonnes of carbon that are saved from that, and it's given us a sustainable supply chain. Finally, just 3 things I've learned, because I've made a whole lot of mistakes in sustainability. I think firstly in sustainability, you have to sustainability can really be whatever you want it to be, and a number of speakers have said this already. Whether you're in, and there won't be many people in denial about sustainability, but whether you're just on the compliance route, you just want to be about compliance, you're focused on risks, or it's really baked into strategy. It has to be whatever your business is about, not whatever some other business is about. And I'll use an example. As I said, I look after communications, and when I think about why my company recruited somebody for communications, it's really to help our sales team sell more, help our manufacturing team and supply chain be more efficient, or in our case, to help us speak to the farmers and give the farmers up-to-date information about the market and keep them in. So I think first of all, sustainability really has to be focused on what's relevant for your company and keep it concentrated. Secondly, on partnership, and again, this is almost a trial and error thing here. If I think back a number of years, we've some relationships we thought were partnerships were really not partnerships, partnerships have to be win-win. Has to be a long-term view. You have to work through issues together, and you've got to have the same mindset. And in common with most places, most of our partners have that same mindset in terms of sustainability. And finally, just a final slide. I don't know if anybody's seen this film, Fight Club? For anybody that's seen it, what's the first rule of Fight Club? Shout it out. You don't talk about Fight Club, exactly. And I think in some ways, it's with certain audiences, it should be the same about sustainability. With this audience, it's fine. I think we're pretty literate on it. But when I speak to our farmers about ethical, environmental, or economic sustainability, they say, well, you just mean the stuff I've been doing for a number of years. Or when I speak to some of the people at our production sites about sustainability on a high level, I really need to get down to what they can do to impact sustainability in their area of control. So I think sometimes we make it way too complicated, and there's a number of companies, I think Sainsbury's are a good example, they don't talk specifically about sustainability anymore. It's just about doing more for less. So whatever we want to call it, I don't think sustainability can be niche. It has to be mainstream, and it has to be about doing more for less. Thank you.